As Michael said this morning, we're on a ride, and we should all enjoy the ride, but we have to clean up after ourselves during that ride. And that's what I'm going to be talking about is the Barr-Milton Watershed Association. And first of all, I'm going to guess that I'm probably the only engineer in the room. Oh, thank you for being here. How many people here are pessimists and see the glass as half empty? Okay, one honest person. How many people are optimists and see the glass as half full? Good. I'm an engineer. The glass is too big. So, wrong way, sorry. At the top of this picture are two reservoirs. And I use that glass analogy because reservoirs are like glasses. You go to your tap, you put water into your glass, and you can carry it to the dinner table. You can carry that glass of water and drink it in front of your TV as you watch the Patriots beat the Giants. Thank you. Reservoirs are like that in Colorado. Colorado gets most of its water from snowmelt, and that comes in the springtime. The spring is a very convenient time to get water, but we need water year-round. So reservoirs are built and store water for times when Colorado doesn't get any water. Colorado is one of two headwater states in the country, according to the Colorado state engineer. And a headwater state is defined as one who is a state that gets water only by precipitation. So Colorado has rivers flowing out, but none flowing in, except for one small segment that comes in and goes back out. Anybody care to guess what the second headwater state is in the United States?
Hawaii.
Thank you very much. My wife's favorite vacation spot. So we have reservoirs, and we store water for use for irrigation, for drinking water supply. You're enjoying the benefits of reservoirs here when you're drinking water. But in Colorado, especially along the front range, you put water into a pond, and with all the sunlight, the high temperatures that we have here in Colorado, you end up with some water quality problems if you're not careful. That's algae. In the case of Barr Lake and Milton Reservoir, those two bodies of water do not meet state water quality standards. And as such, they've been put on a 303D list, which means you have to do some studying and take some corrective actions, and that's how BMW was formed. The watershed extends from south of here, Chatfield, Cherry Creek, and Bear Creek, all the way north to Milton Reservoir, which is about 45 miles away to the north. In this watershed, there are all kinds of, I'll be talking about the many jurisdictions that are here that we need to deal with, a little bit about the water quality problems and how we got there. This was going to be a really cool slide. Water storage in management and storage in Colorado began when that newspaper editor said, "Go west." So people did. They came from areas that had a lot of water. Colorado doesn't. This was supposed to be a little more readable. Ulysses S. Grant sold property in Englewood to build a ditch to move water from one spot to the other. But you can't read that, but that's what that is. So this has been issues at Barr Lake have been a long time coming. The Barr Lake was built in the early 1900s, and this is some of the descriptions taken from other sources, not just me. Barr Lake was an anoxic septic lagoon. That's a pretty good description, and quite frequently the lake was black. That's septic, no oxygen, smells bad. In the 1960s, there was a new wastewater plant built for Denver that took care of a lot of those problems. And in 1972, the Clean Water Act came along, so more sewage treatment, more work on water quality, but still not good water quality in Barr Lake. And I'm going to point to the last line. Barr Lake is green. That's algae. Barr Lake receives a fairly high level of nutrients, which just fosters algae growth, and it's green. And we'll be coming back to that shortly. This is what happens. We have nutrients coming in, and I hate to tell you, but everyone in this room is a little nutrient generator. You send your nutrients to us. I manage a wastewater treatment plant. We treat it, and right now we don't have many requirements on removing nutrients. So our discharge goes into the South Platte River downstream into Barr Lake, into this nice big reservoir, receiving a lot of sunshine, and we get algae blooms. One of the problems with algae blooms is the pH goes up during the day, at night. But the water's green, you can't see through it. It also has problems with dissolved oxygen. So that's why the BMW was formed. That's actually water from Barr Lake in that cup. I don't know how you can, I don't know if you can see how green that is, but there's a lot of algae in there, and that's the problem. So nutrient sources, wastewater treatment plants, I manage one. Municipal stormwater, runoff from your lawns. That would be the non-point. Agriculture uses nutrients to grow crops. Nutrients come from there. When you put water into a reservoir, things settle out, and what settles out has nutrients in it also, so there's an in-lake source. And there's one that's not listed here. Some algae can actually take nitrogen from the air and turn it into nitrates, which they use as a nutrient. We've done a lot of modeling. We've collected a lot of data. The association has completed a grant of over $300,000 that required matching funds. So if you look at our effort to date, we've spent well over $1.5 million. Amy Conklin is our coordinator, and she just gave me, it's higher than that, so I'll say 3 and watch to see what happens, and she's nodding yes. We've collected data. We have done modeling in the reservoirs. We have modeled that watershed that you saw earlier. That's over 800 square miles of area. And we have come up with what's called a TMDL, Total Maximum Daily Load Study, that tries to identify what the limit is as far as putting nutrients into Barr Lake. And that's been what we've done. We spent all that money to develop a report that hasn't been approved yet. We've done some other activities along the way, like participating in groups like this and putting on some events of our own to try and get the word out to Colorado residents that this effort is going on. But that's what we've done so far. We've tried to do some in-lake studies. These are known as limno corrals. You can take that word home and use it at your dinner table tonight. Basically, it's a shower curtain, and it isolates a column of water in the reservoir so that we can study what would happen if we were going to do something for real. The one down in the lower right-hand corner has an aerator in it. We're blowing air in there to see if providing air and mixing will help out. The one on top is a control. We don't do anything with it. And what we wanted to do was actually put some chemicals in here to treat for phosphorus removal in particular. But we haven't been able to do that yet. So we're trying to get some things done as well as just write a report. This is what it looks like, and Barr Lake is about 30 feet deep, 30 feet deep at its deepest. So this goes anchored on the bottom, the floats are on the top, so we can isolate that column of water and see what happens. So who is this organization trying to get all this work done and trying to improve? Well, I won't go back. Basically, Barr-Milton Watershed Association has 19 what we call active and supporting members. Pay dues, try and get things done. Those agencies that are members are water supply agencies, providing you drinking water, wastewater agencies like mine, irrigation companies, various cities throughout the region, and we also have a category of membership that is free. There's no limit to who can be a member of the Barr-Milton Watershed Association. It's our general category. To be a member of that category, we encourage a dues of $25 a year. If you can't afford that, that's okay. And this is our mission and vision. We've focused on cooperation and collaboration in what we're doing, trying to make improvements to those 2 reservoirs. And our vision is to basically improve water quality at Barr Lake and Milton Reservoir. We have completed a watershed management plan that the EPA requires, and one of the things that I think makes our association unique is the one that's highlighted in red. This is kind of how we do our work. We do things by consensus. And somebody mentioned earlier how painful collaboration can be when you're listening to everybody's different opinion. And I can verify that is true. We have people, the agencies that are in Barr-Milton have a widely divergent agenda. Mine is to serve the communities. The plant I manage, actually, you're in my service area, so thank you very much. My focus is wastewater treatment. Other agencies, their focus is on water treatment. Other agencies, so quite a wide variety of perspectives coming together in one large area. But we do things by consensus. We have a voting mechanism, but that voting mechanism is only for extremely important decisions or if we can't get to consensus. And I would like to report to you today that we have done everything by consensus, and we've only voted, I think, 2 times, and those 2 times that we voted were not the result of conflict. It's because we had a high-level decision to make. And I think we've been incredibly successful at working together, but that collaboration does take time. Oh, the other thing I keep pointing out about the board of directors, I think we're the only board in the state of Colorado who has absolutely no authority. And we set it up that way. We wanted this to be a stakeholder-driven process, and the only thing the board does is work really hard at keeping the organization going. So all the voting is done by the stakeholders. The only power that the board has is the right to veto. If we believe, for whatever reason, that there's been a really bad decision made by the stakeholder process, the board can actually veto that, but it's not really a veto. We get to refer that issue back to the membership. And that has not happened, but that would only result from a situation where we weren't doing that collaborative working together. So, this watershed that you are sitting in right now is not a very large part of the state. How can that happen when I'm not pointing it the right way? But we have half the people, and I'm just going to say, if you're talking about being sustainable, having half the people in Colorado live in the Barr-Milton watershed. That's over 1 million people in this fairly small area that's semi-arid to arid. It's probably not a sustainable approach unless you're working really hard to make it work. So for those of you who live in that area, Thornton, Littleton, Englewood, Denver, welcome to the Barr-Milton Watershed Association. You too can be members. This is kind of what it looks like. Again, reservoirs down close to where we are, Chatfield, Cherry Creek, and Bear Creek form the southern boundary, and it works its way north along the main stem of the South Platte. We have 1 or 2 Coloradans live in this watershed. It's 850 square miles, mostly privately owned. The interesting thing is this watershed within this boundary has 500 miles of natural streams and has 550 miles of ditches and canals, artificially constructed to move water from one place to another. Oh, there should be something here. This is that previous slide. So what does the future hold? If we can get this pulled together and make improvements in Barr Lake and Milton Reservoir, we'll be entering a second period of transition. I mentioned the first one where it went from a black lagoon to a wildlife refuge. Barr Lake is going to be used for municipal drinking water supply. And even after we do our work, everything that we've been able to determine says that Barr Lake will still be green and still have an algae problem. Try and use that as a sales pitch to try and get improvements to water quality. So here's some of the challenges that we expected. We knew this going in. It's a large urban area, which means a lot of political jurisdictions, a lot of different agendas I mentioned before. We knew that funding was going to be a problem. Whenever you're trying to take on something of this magnitude, money is an issue. and has been, and we've been fairly successful at working through the funding for the association. Regulatory and flexibility. Here's the rules, here's the regulations, this is what you have to do. We knew a lot of that going in, and I think we've done a pretty good job at working a site-specific solution to an issue when we're guided by this regulatory and flexibility. I mentioned the diverse agenda. Everybody at the table has a different agenda. Distance. You are approximately 27 miles from Barr Lake. A lot of people who live in this area may not even know where Barr Lake is. So when I'm trying to come to them and say we need to spend money to improve water quality in this lake, and they say, where is it? You know you've got a problem starting right off. And easy targets. You're looking at it. I manage a sewage treatment plant. Everybody points a finger, it's you, and you have to do something about it. Well, I'm going to point it back this way because it's you also if you're living in this area. But easy targets. And the problem at Barr Lake won't get solved without doing something about sewage treatment. But sewage treatment alone is not going to get it done. And that's something we'll deal with going down the road. This is a graph. The cost of clean water is going up. We've taken care of the easy stuff, which has cost don't get me wrong, it's cost millions of dollars. I have a staff of incredibly dedicated people managing a very large wastewater plant. But the cost of treating the wastewater is going up with new regulations. We'll be using more energy. We're looking at nutrient requirements coming up, and it's all going to take funding and energy. And what we're trying to do is get the word out. This is a quote from Abraham Lincoln. Public sentiment is everything. With public sentiment, nothing can fail. Without it, nothing can succeed. And I didn't know some of the names of the people you were talking about this morning, but I do know who Abraham Lincoln is. Unexpected challenges, some things that we didn't expect. Regulatory inflexibility. We didn't realize how inflexible it really was. We wanted to do some studies in Barr Lake, in those limno corrals, and one of the things we wanted to do was actually put alum, it's a water treatment chemical, clears the water up, settles things out, puts 2 gallons of alum in a 3,500 acre reservoir. And we couldn't get permission from the state health department to do that. What we needed to apply for is a full wastewater discharge permit, good forever, even though we just wanted to do this one time. The TMDL that I mentioned that we worked hard to get completed has been in the health department for over a year waiting to be approved. And we don't think that's going to happen for the next 4 or 5 months. So that has been an issue that we didn't expect. No glamour. We haven't done anything glamorous yet. This is probably one of the more glamorous things we've done. The TMDL is not glamour. It's, hey, we did a report. So there's really no glamour, and trying to keeping people interested in this process has been a challenge. Usually people talk about political will, but I put public in front of that because those million people, over a million people who live in this watershed, are going to have that public will to get this done. This is going to be a very expensive long-term proposition, and the political will is not going to come along unless the public will is supporting that. So we're trying to put together a public education program to develop that public will for this project. And then climate and weather change, has been a little bit of discussion about that. I don't know if it's climate, I don't know if it's weather, but I know that in 2003 we had the worst drought in, I think, up to 500 years. Totally unexpected. So some ways you can help. Well, this is one of the big easy targets. This is not my facility. Mine looks a lot better. But point source controls, that's where sewage treatment comes in, will have to be done to make improvements to Barr Lake. But that's not the only thing that has to be done. So it would be really nice if you could help develop that public will for these major projects that are going to come up as a result of this work. In between that large plant and this lone guy walking across a reservoir are a series of smaller sources of nutrients that have to be taken care of, but it does come down to what you do in your home as well as what you support us doing on the larger projects. When you fertilize your lawn, you're not just fertilizing your lawn. When you drive your car, you're not just Well, you get the idea. In-home sources of phosphorus are very, thank you, need to be controlled. Right now, no, we won't go there. So it is up to you as the public, developing public will, and things you're doing in your own home. So I'm going to ask one last question and ask how many people have a garbage disposal on their kitchen sink? So if you cup your hand like this and imagine some carrot peels in there, some leftover pieces of meat from the dinner that you just served, and you have kind of a handful, not, it's not overflowing or anything, and you walk over to your sink and you do this into your garbage disposal and then turn it on, well, now you've just used water to put garbage down the disposal into the collection system that comes to my plant. I have to take all of that out. And I can tell you that taking out little pieces of eggshell or carrot is not a fun job. Those 2.1 million people, I forget the actual number, it's about a million homes. So if those million homes do that once a day, you've just made me and people who, like me, take out 125,000 pounds of garbage each day. That's how much that little 2-ounce glob of garbage comes to when it comes to our facilities. Nutrients are that same kind of way. Please don't be using phosphate detergents. I know they work better. Do whatever you need to do. So it's the large projects, and it comes down to what you've heard today. It comes down to us. Thank you.